Good morning, everybody, and welcome to all those who are tuning in on this 4th of July weekend. I'm Reverend Richard Burdick, and we're delighted and thrilled that you're with us this morning. We're going to get started in about 4 minutes. I invite you to just get a cup of coffee, kick back, relax, let yourself sink into whatever chair you happen to be in, and appreciate and enjoy your freedoms. We'll get started in just a minute. Once again, we want to welcome anybody who's tuning in. We're delighted that you're here and that you've made the choice to be with us this morning. I'm here with two of my closest friends, two of my great partners in believing and in freedom. Richard Croker right to my immediate left and Jerry Epps farther over on the stage. We're going to get started in just a second, but right now I invite you to sing with me as a setting of the foundation of this beautiful day of celebration. America the beautiful, oh beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesties above the fruited plain. America, oh America, God shed His grace on thee and crowned thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. How about a little glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. God's truth is marching on. Oh, America, sweet America, God shed His grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. A little glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. God's truth is marching on. Well, happy Independence Day weekend, everybody. We are again delighted that you are joining us here. To my immediate left is Richard Croker, one of my dearest to dearest friends and co-author of a book that's going to be coming out anytime now. Over the far left over there is Dr. Jerry Epps. They're both going to be sharing two of my favorite people on the planet and two people that are on either spectrum politically from where I'm at, and I love both of them dearly, and we have wonderful dialogues. Right now, the dialogue we want to have is with the spirit of freedom, the spirit of love with which we greet each other in this country, the spirit of God. And so I would like to invite Richard Croker to share just a little bit to get us going on this journey.
Thank you, Richard. We meet in a Unity Church every Sunday morning, and thousands of churches and thousands of people and millions of people meet in different churches with different ideas and different attitudes, all created equal. Because a few men, a handful of men, demanded it centuries ago. Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and the man I'm going to read from today, Thomas Paine, an essayist and philosopher, more famous for the words, "These are the times that try men's souls." But later, he wrote a manifesto called The Age of Reason, and this is an excerpt from The Age of Reason regarding freedom of religion and his personal religion. I believe in one God and no more, and I hope for happiness beyond this life. I believe in the equality of man, and I believe that religious duties consist of doing justice, loving mercy, and endeavoring to make our fellow creatures happy. I do not believe in the creed professed by the Jewish church, or the Roman church, or the Greek church, or the Turkish church, by the Protestant church, or any church that I know of. My own mind is my own church. I do not mean by this declaration to condemn those who believe otherwise. They have the same right to their belief as I have to mine. But it is necessary to the happiness of man that he be mentally faithful to himself. Infidelity does not consist in believing or in disbelieving. It consists in professing to believe that which he does not believe. I believe in one God and no more. Thomas Paine.
Thank you so much, Richard. And so let us find the God of our own understanding this day. And let us find in our diversity a place of being united, a place of understanding that we are a great tapestry in this nation of belief systems, religious belief systems, political belief systems. We come from many places and many lands, yet we find a way in our differences to find peace. Let this be a day of finding peace. Let this be a day of finding love, not only for ourselves, but for all the world. Let this be our opening prayer. This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and mine. This is my home, my country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and pine. But other lands have sunlight too and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my prayer, O God of all the nations, a prayer of peace for their land and for mine. Oh, hear my prayer, O God of all the nations, a prayer of peace for their land and for mine. I offer you these words from Tagore. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, and where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, and where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, and where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom. My Father, let my country awaken. This day our prayer is to let our nation, to let our church, to let each of us as individuals awaken, to awaken from the freedom from any bonds that have held us captive. This is our prayer. This is our expression. This will be our experience. Thank you, God. Amen. I'm going to turn to the other camera. There we go. Hello, everybody. Once again, welcome. Yesterday, we as a nation, we celebrated our independence. A beautiful time of gratitude, a time of recognizing and contemplation about how incredibly blessed we are as a nation. Just a few weeks ago, on June 19th, many people recognized the emancipation of African Americans who had been held in slavery for over 250 years. Every Sunday in the Unity movement, we celebrate the freedom to follow the prophet, to follow the sacred scriptures, to follow the spiritual path that we choose, and to honor the God of our own understanding, much like the words that Richard just shared. We do that without the threat of it being violently taken away from us and losing our lives because we think a little bit differently. I was reminded of the First Amendment as I prepared this message today, and I wanted to read a little bit of that. The first part of that amendment says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Unity is a very free-thinking society. I don't know if you've noticed that or not, but we're pretty much free thinkers, and we have the gamut of different belief systems and different ways of expressing and experiencing life, and that's something we celebrate. But let's, on this day, remember that that freedom, that uniqueness of our spiritual environment is intrinsically linked to both Independence Day and Juneteenth. Throughout history, religious conversions have happened at the edge of a weapon, or at the edge of the promise of freedom if one would convert, only to have that freedom reneged upon once the conversion was complete. Conversion often happened, too, at the edge of bigotry that would only accept you if you believed a certain way. In order to be accepted, you had to think a certain belief system, spiritually and otherwise. Today, we recognize, we don't hide it, that human history, as well as American history, is dotted with not so good uses of the spiritual freedoms that are contained within that First Amendment and the words of our founding fathers that Richard just shared. But here's the most important thing that I want to celebrate today. Throughout all of this, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the falling, the making mistakes, the celebrations, we have had the freedom and the ability to educate ourselves, to grow, The United States of America is an evolving environment, and that's what I want to celebrate today. The opportunities to learn from our mistakes and to get back up and to do it a little bit better tomorrow. We have the freedom to educate ourselves, not only in our churches, not only in our classrooms, but through careful and meticulous examination of our history, not with blame or shame, but with an open heart and mind that says, perhaps we can do that better. But the greatest education will come in our day-to-day interactions with each other and the application of what we have learned from our history as we relate to each other as spiritual travelers, walking this earthly journey together, walking the journey of the United States of America. That education and its application will determine the difference between true freedom and liberation. You see, they're very different things. Liberty and true freedom are very different. Before I continue, I'd like to ask Richard to share a little bit about our religious freedoms and where they were founded. And, you know, everything in this world was created twice, first in mind and then in reality. And so in the mind of many of our founding fathers and mothers was the idea of religious freedom. Richard?
I think that many of us, something that's generally skipped over in high school history books is the fact that right up until the passage of the First Amendment, the state of Virginia, for example, had a state religion. Everybody was taxed by the Episcopal Church of Virginia. And this offended several people, but not everyone. Among them were Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence, James Madison, the father of our Constitution, he has come to be known as. Richard spoke earlier about that precipitated something called the Virginia Act of Religious Freedom. This pertained to Virginia only. It was Thomas Jefferson's proudest moment to get that passed, so that in the state of Virginia, before the Constitution, in the state of Virginia, there would be no official state religion in Virginia. Before he passed away, he wrote down what his epitaph should be, and this is what appears on his headstone. He says, "These words and nothing more." He said, "Here was buried Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of American Independence, the Statute of Virginia for Religious Freedom, and father of the University of Virginia." There's no mention of his having been president of the United States. Author of the Declaration of American Independence and the Statute of Virginia for Religious Freedom. Thomas Jefferson, in the days prior to cut and paste, really did a cut and paste with scissors and paste. And he wrote his own version of the Bible, of the Gospels, in which he cut out the parts he didn't like and left only behind the words of Jesus. What I call today red word Christianity, where you can focus on only the words that Jesus spoke. He cut out the miracles and left only the admonitions, basically, to love thy neighbor as thyself. The book was called The Life and Morals of Jesus of Nazareth. This is a man for whom religion was a binary proposal. Religion was between me and he, and nobody else. No one else may tell me what to believe, how to believe it, or how to say it. Nobody else can. And as Richard made allusion to earlier, the First Amendment to the Constitution. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition their government for a redress of grievances. Number one, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. Religion is between me and God and nobody else.
I think that Thomas Jefferson, with all of his flaws and all of his beauty and all of the everything in between, could have been a Unity student. Religion is between me and the God of my understanding. And I think that's really important to recognize today. We're not at the mercy of anybody that tells us that we are wrong to have our church burned down or to have our lives lost because we believe differently, because the God of our understanding is different. And I'm reminded as I hear Richard's words that we in Unity, we follow the religion of Jesus, not the religion about Jesus. Do we fall short? Certainly. I fall short. Did Thomas Jefferson fall short? Absolutely he did. But the ideal cannot be tainted when we fall short, when we come up short. The ideal remains, and it is the cornerstone of our country, of our nation, of the Unity movement, to follow the God of our understanding and to follow the example of Jesus the Christ. Now in Unity, we seek to realize that our liberation, both physically and spiritually, is only a part of the equation to get to true freedom. We can be liberated from the bonds of slavery, from the bondage of oppressive government systems or myopic, narrow religious doctrines. But unless we liberate our minds and our hearts, we will remain in bondage. You see, sometimes the greatest slavery is the slave being a slave to an idea. Now, I've heard it said that there are only really 3 different freedoms. There is the freedom from, there is the freedom to, and then there is the freedom to be. And these 3 are stepping stones from liberation to true emancipation. Stepping stones that require each step of the journey responsibility. And if I am to hold myself accountable, I must hold history accountable. I must hold my fellow Americans accountable. Again, contained within that First Amendment. So freedom number 1, the freedom from. We in this nation celebrate that we are mostly free from the threats of social restrictions, of violence, attack, and bondage. Perhaps in this time, some of us are a little bit more free than others, but as I mentioned earlier, we're on an evolutionary educational process. And I think what's happening right now is an educational process. Pay attention to the classroom. Put your hand up and ask the questions. Be prepared for the teacher to call upon you, because in this classroom, nobody gets off the hook. But that education and that freedom from came about as a reaction to the uprising of those that shed a light on the darkness of oppression, on the darkness of subjugation of any human being. And again, as Richard said, I want to reiterate it, the second part of that First Amendment says the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That amendment is being utilized and worked right now all over the nation. And I will stand with those that are not only celebrating the first part of that amendment, the religious freedom, but the second part, when they notice that there is an oppression, when there is something out of congruity. And by speaking up, the educational process of the United States of America continues. Now, minorities, both ethnically and spiritually, unfortunately, had to wait quite a bit longer than people who look like me before they were truly free and could live under that Constitution. And the same can be argued for women. We're not going to deny our history. We're not going to blame and shame our history, but we're going to use it as the textbook for how we can do better. For the most part, there has been a liberation for all people that we celebrate today, but we've got a ways to go. A liberation, as I mentioned, that is an evolutionary process, not a one-time event that happened on July 4th, 1776, but perhaps an ongoing journey that includes dates like June 19th, 1865, that we so soon forget, equally as important to this nation as July 4th, 1776. And let us not forget August 18th, 1920. I checked my dates. You go check that date as well. But it was the moment, 1920, not that long ago, where all men were created equal became all humanity as created equal and included the women that were given the right to vote. And if we are true to this nation and the principles of this nation, that educational process must include July 5th, 2020. We are a part of an evolution. We are a part of an education. We get to freedom number 2, the freedom to. The freedom that once liberated from governmental, religious, or private restrictions to create our own set of values, our own set of beliefs, and our own standards. The place where we can explore, we can stretch our wings and explore the vast miracle of the freedoms that we get to enjoy. However, if that freedom and that exploration and the stretching of our wings is contextualized by a mind that either is still in bondage, and there's plenty of examples around there of a person who's completely free, still living in the idea of bondage, the thought of bondage, or one that runs out of control, where the ego has taken over and runs out of control, claiming their own freedom and subjugating others in that freedom, it can be a very dangerous tool, a very dangerous place to live in. All those examples are living in our nation today. We call them out as an educational and evolutionary process. The second level of freedom was indicated by the 18th century French philosopher. I know that my French friends will love that on the 4th of July I'm going to quote a French philosopher. But Jean-Jacques Rousseau observed, "Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains." A lot of us were offered freedom, and we're still living in the chains, because freedom can be a bit illusory. As the prison has been transformed, perhaps from a plantation to a legal system, from the voting booth to control at home, from the jail to an ego-driven society, an ego-driven life. You see, freedom can be deceptive in that the chains have merely changed form. I want you to hear that. Freedom can be deceptive because the chains can merely change form. And many times the form is even more oppressive than the original. For being imprisoned in the shadows, in secret, subversively, underneath the surface of the water, in hiding, or in our own minds, is a very dangerous place because the education stops. That which is hiding in the shadows and in the darkness stops evolution and stops education. On that note, I'd like to invite my good friend Dr. Jerry Epps to speak a little bit about the various aspects of freedom, not the least of which is the freedom of consciousness.
I love America. I love democracy. I love free enterprise. And that's why I wrote books about them and put them on the internet for free. But America is not the only group that desires freedom. For example, Yeon Mi Park, a human traffic activist, was 13 years old when she was crossing the river in the dead of night with her mother, paid off the smugglers, went over 3 mountain ranges into China, and finally, with the help of Christian missionaries, made her way into Mongolia and then back into South Korea to ultimate safety. That journey took 2 years. My personal friend, Ramon from Venezuela, Ramon still carries lead in his neck and shoulder from the bullet shot at him by that mean government when he escaped last summer. He's safe in Roswell, Georgia now. That country was once the most prosperous country, and now it's ravaged by hunger and fear. Malala, the Pakistani girl who spoke up for girls' education. The Taliban bullet that was supposed to kill her didn't, and she still speaks up. She's the youngest ever Nobel Peace Prize laureate. My own escape from a third world country, a place where you could have anybody murdered for $200 US. I was a teacher at the international school, and I angered somebody powerful. I missed one day out sick in the time that I was teaching at that school, and that is the very day that armed agents came on campus looking for me, and by the grace of God, I wasn't there. My principal said the next day, hate to say it, but if you want to stay alive, you better leave for the States. When I landed in the States, I found a piece of ground, and I knelt down and kissed it. But just recently, I finished another journey to Iowa, where my last and oldest brother is dying. Hospice says maybe another week. What does he want now? He wants freedom. He wants eternal freedom. He wants to be soaked in sacred spirit. He wants to be in elevated consciousness, because that's the way to have eternal freedom. How do you get that? You spend time soaking every day in sacred spirit, and you live in higher consciousness. That is, you move beyond ego-based living. To my brother Larry, I say, bless you. And this prayer to so many. O Lord, may their time be not too long, and may their suffering be not too great before they are set free.
Thank you, Jerry. The thirst and the hunger for freedom is international. It is universal. It is a part of the human desire to be free on every level, every single level. Now, as Jerry mentioned, he angered a few people in authority. I'm going to kiss the ground today of the United States of America because I have angered a great deal of people in authority in my life. And yet I still stand here today without the threat of being shot or somebody breaking into the church and shooting me. We move to our third freedom, which is the freedom that exists first in mind. I mentioned that everything in this world is created twice. First in mind and then in reality. And this is the third freedom, the freedom to. Our stepping stones, the freedom from liberation. Then we step two, the freedom to do what we want and to create our own ideals. Freedom three is the freedom to be. And that could be whether it be released from slavery, religious oppression, or from this earthly existence as you're making your transition. This is the true freedom that indicates a higher and elevated consciousness. It indicates a collective and individual claiming of responsibility and accountability. It is indication that the rebellions that have happened externally and internally, those moments of standing up and shining a light on the darkness and being willing to educate ourselves, to be humble enough to educate ourselves that maybe the roots have gone down and taken hold. The revolution and evolution necessary for true freedom lies in our courage to speak out, but also to speak in. You hear me talk a lot in this Unity Church about where I am out of congruity with the divine idea. You see, the rebellions happen externally, but they must happen internally as well, as we recognize where we are out of balance with the freedom that we seek. This is the stepping stone from the freedom to, where we're still trapped in the prisons of our mind, and the freedom to be, where we have evolved. We examine the chains, both internal and external, that have been relegated to the darkness, and we shine a light on them as they are exposed once again. So it's a matter of owning my rights as a United States citizen, but also owning my rights and my responsibilities as a United States citizen. It is owning my rights as a spiritual being, founded in the image and after the likeness of God. But it must be hand in hand in partnership with my responsibilities that come with that freedom as a spiritual being. That means cleaning house externally. Cleaning the swamp, some people have said. The swamp I want to clean is the one inside my own head. That allows anger and duality and fight and flight to dominate over spiritual truth. True freedom will only come when everywhere I look, I see the face of God. That means strength and humility as partners. During this time of civil unrest in our country, strength and humility must be partners. Otherwise, we are just about to have another civil war. I want to call out for our nation and our peoples, both black, white, brown, yellow, male, female, young and old, conservative and liberal, a balance. The speaking out and the speaking in must be partners. And the speaking in has long been forgotten. And if we want to stop the violence that's happening, we want to move forward as a nation, educating ourselves from what is up in the field, there must be as much speaking in as there is speaking out right now. It's our right and our responsibility as a U.S. citizen and as a spiritual being. What does that mean? It means that challenge and accountability must be friends. Speaking out and speaking in must be friends. This is the revolution I'm calling out, but mostly I'm calling it out in my own heart on this 4th of July weekend, this Independence Day weekend. I'm answering the call of Jerry's brother for freedom. I'm answering the call of the protesters that are using their First Amendment rights to hold signs and protest as the means of where do I need to protest what's going on in my own head and in my own thought. I'm going to use the intentions of Thomas Jefferson. Even if I did not think that he lived according to those principles, it makes no difference. They are still true. They are still valuable. And if we are to grow as a nation, I need to play my role and to speak inward and look at my own heart and free myself from the restraints of my own duplicity, my own anger, and my own fears. And so we're going to go into a time of reflection right now with this song, Freedom Reigns. At the end of this song, we have a video that's going to serve as our meditation today. It's from my colleague and my friend, David Alt. Let it be a new pledge, not to replace the old pledge of allegiance to this beautiful nation. That is important, which is why I put a flag behind me at least 3 times a year. And that's why there's a flag, the American flag, on our platform and on our stage all year long. But it's a partnership. It is a loyalty to the principles of our nation, but it's also a loyalty to holding myself accountable to the freedom that must be within, regardless of circumstances. Take a deep breath with me, and let these words be your sacred vow, your sacred pledge, your sacred commitment of independence this weekend. I am not bound, I am free, I let go of the chains, and let Spirit illumine my soul. I am not bound, I am free, I let go of the chains, and let Spirit illumine my soul. Thank you for setting me free from the chains of illusion. Thank you for setting me free. Sing with me. Thank you for setting me free from the chains of illusion. Thank you for setting me free. Freedom reigns, I am free of chains. I let go and let Spirit illumine my soul. Freedom reigns, I am free of chains. I let go and let Spirit illumine my soul. I am not bound, I am free. I let go of the chains and let Spirit illumine my soul. Sing with me. I am not bound, I am free. I let go of the chains and let Spirit illumine my soul. Stay here for a moment and take this pledge as your own.
I pledge allegiance to breaking the self-imposed barriers of my humanness. I recognize that my time on this planet is precious and limited. Every day is a canvas on which I can create. Every day is an opportunity for me to move in the direction of the dreams and the expanded vision I feel inside. By setting aside petty grievances, past mistakes, righteous anger, and my broken story, I pledge to move forward and embrace the experience of freedom right here and right now. I pledge allegiance to the expression of my spiritual honesty. I fully own the fact that my presence here in this body and on this earth is a celebration of uniqueness and importance. Creation makes no mistakes. I am a creation of life, of a higher power, of perfection. My reason for being here matters in the grand divine plan. I must be honest with my contract of life and walk the path of my destiny with conviction, purpose, and grace. I pledge allegiance to the quiet soldier within. I understand that the championing spirit that is already cellularly alive inside of me, that was already in place at the time of my birth, waits patiently for my current belief about myself to join it in its knowing. I march forward towards a history of my own making, wisely, lovingly choosing the means by which I spread my beliefs and convictions. I never make others wrong for their chosen path, for I recognize the innumerable roads that lead to the one. I pledge allegiance to a partnership with divinity. I choose to see others and myself from eyes that already view the wholeness and perfection within. I do not entertain our past damage or encourage us to identify with it, for I trust that a grander calling card has been printed for us to distribute in promoting our lives. I champion all of us to celebrate what is working rather than what isn't. I pledge allegiance to wise discernment, knowing when to speak and when to remain quiet, knowing when to comfort and when to leave alone, knowing when to intervene and when to avoid rescuing and interfering. I pledge allegiance to people and projects of substance. I cannot travel this road alone. If there is anything we need as a species, it is each other. I actively choose to support those whose work I believe in with my time, talent, and treasure. I joyously give to those whose intention and purpose is for self-empowerment and the awakening of humanity to its personal magnificence. I rally to make others aware of such light bearers and do what I can to support them in furthering their vision. I pledge allegiance to the freedom from comparison. I once and for all lay down my wearisome, stale beliefs of unworthiness and not being good enough. I know that my past does not define who I am. I am forever evolving, growing, and learning. I recognize that I am a marvel. I now choose opportunities to let my voice be heard, to let my light shatter the darkness of futility so that every personal dream is explored. I pledge allegiance in knowing that things are not always as they seem. Just because something can't be seen with the physical eye or rationalized by our current mode of understanding does not negate its existence. Understanding the difference between reality and illusion, I move into a fuller acceptance of the non-physical, the mystical, intuitive, soul aspect of living that expands my consciousness and deepens my days. I pledge allegiance to actions that fulfill the greatest good for all. By becoming a gatekeeper of compassion, tolerance, and love, I move into a fuller conviction of pure intent with regard to the words that I speak and the choices that I make. I pursue a win-win in all activities of life. I pledge allegiance to those who have gone before me, the ancestral lineage whose courage, sacrifice, and conviction still live in my bones. I honor the privileges given to me today because of the sweat from their pioneering efforts and the fortitude of their convictions. I give thanks for my responsibility in creating the same for future generations. I pledge allegiance to a love that has no agenda. I no longer choose to give for what I might get, to manipulate in order to control, to abandon before I can be abandoned, to tolerate because there are seemingly no other options. I choose to love as a way of being. I am content in my choice whether outside circumstances respond or not. In being love, I create fulfillment above and beyond what the human condition can provide. I pledge allegiance to the sacredness of laughter, knowing that the greatest healing force that exists reverberates from the vibration of this holy and irreplaceable gift. I allow humor, joy, and eruptions of laughter to make their home in my heart. I let my physical body respond to the sacred stimulus and biological wonder that laughter creates, and vow to keep this attribute alive and thriving all the days of my life.
I want to thank David Auld for that beautiful piece, that beautiful meditation. I want to thank my good friend Richard Croker, my very good friend Dr. Jerry Epps, for being here. There was a line, and I believe that my two friends would join me in that. There were a couple lines. Let's celebrate win-win. Let's find the middle ground where we all can win and celebrate what is working. I leave you once again with what I believe is working in our country today, and that is the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Before we go into an offering and closing of the service, I'd like to offer my friends, if there's anything else that you would like to say, to just add to what we have shared here today. I would love to give an opportunity to just, you can say I love you if you want, but you can say whatever you want to the Unity North family that's watching today.
One more short quotation from Thomas Jefferson. I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against everyone or move of tyranny over the mind of man. Believe what you believe, Have faith in what you have faith in. And just be kind. Jerry?
And so, I hope that this service and the words that have been shared here has been valuable to you. And if it has had value to you, I'm going to invite you to demonstrate your gratitude for that by finding a way to financially support the work of Unity North Atlanta Church. It could be text to give that comes up on the screen there. The opportunity very simply to just say, thank you for what you are doing on this planet, Unity North, my family, my community, my free spiritual community. It could be texting on the Facebook page. It's very easy to do it there as well, to just click the link. Or mail a check-in. You've been so incredibly generous during this very challenging and difficult time of quarantine. Keep those checks coming and know that we are praying over each one of them with deep gratitude for the ways that you are blessing this incredible place that we call our home, Unity North Atlanta Church. And please know that every dollar that comes in, 10% of it is going out to bless this country and those that might be in need or those that are doing great work. We are keeping in the flow of God. That's part of what I believe this nation stands for, is to follow the teachings of our master teacher, and that means to give freely, to give openly. And so I invite you to do that right now as we close our service. I invite you to find the way to do that and to know how blessed you are, not only to be an American, but to be a Unity student, but to be amongst people who think differently than you. And somehow we get along. You know, I would love to say that Richard and Jerry and I, we agree upon everything. But if we agreed upon everything, well, at least two of us would be completely unnecessary. And so I'm grateful that we think differently. That's what makes this country what it is. And so I'm going to switch cameras over there, Wes. I'm going to invite you to sing with me this closing song, God Bless America. We said God bless the world earlier, and it's okay. It is absolutely okay to say God bless America, God bless the state of Georgia, God bless Unity North, and God bless me. Together we sing, God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home. Now my colleagues asked me if they could sing with me. This would be the moment. If you want to turn your mic live, God pray for all of us. It's okay if you want to stand and sing God Bless America with me one more time. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her with 6 feet distance from the light, with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you for being with us today. Wednesday night, come back and see us on July 15th. Bob Sima and Shannon Plummer are going to be with us, a wonderful concert of inspiration and truth. And for those who are wanting to explore the racial injustice in our country, tomorrow night and next Monday night, stories of racial injustice with members of our Unity North congregation who are going to share their journey of moving towards equality, and then we will share solutions to that. God bless America. God bless humanity. God bless each and every one of you. Thanks for being here today. Have a beautiful day, everybody. We'll see you on Wednesday night.